Hi, welcome to the kitchen. Today I'd like to share with you a couple of recipes that our children certainly enjoyed as they were growing up, and hopefully yours will too. First, we're going to make a pizza, plain and simple, and second, some chive and cheese twists. But first, the pizza. The main herb in the pizza is oregano, and this is Greek oregano, which has a real good peppery, pungent flavor. This is for children. And if we put raw garlic into our sauce, children are apt not to like it. So what we're going to do is just take the heat out of the garlic by softening it in the oil just for 2-3 minutes. This is some Greek oregano here, and I'll just start stripping these leaves off. This Greek oregano is a native to the Mediterranean, and it grows wild in the mountains of Greece. And it's a very hardy perennial, which means that in most parts of the world it will survive outside in the wintertime. It needs, once it's established, it needs very, very little fertilizer and very little water, but I caution you, the word is once it's established. So I'm just going to take this and chop it up, and we want to get about 2 tablespoons out of this. Okay, the garlic is softened. Let's just take the crushed tomatoes and add them into the garlic and the oil mixture. Just going to give this a little stir to combine it all up together. And going to add in the oregano, and all we're going to do is have this on really low heat, and I just want the oregano flavor to infuse through into the crushed tomatoes. The next thing I'd like to do is add a little bit of pepper, some freshly ground pepper, and I can tell you that before we got a pepper grinder in our house, our children would never use pepper, but once we got this thing, kids like toys, and they started using it all the time, so maybe yours will too. And we'll let that simmer for 3-4 minutes. And in the meantime, I'm going to move over and start on the chive and cheese twists. So the main ingredient in this are chives, and I've harvested 3 varieties today. The ones with the purple flowers and the white flowers are garlic chives, which have a very mild garlic flavor, which I find children enjoy. The ones closest to me are the common chives, which have more of an onion flavor to them. You can tell the difference if you look closely at the ends. The regular chives have a round stalk to them, and the garlic chives have a flat blade. And we want to cut these as finely as we can. Interesting thing about garlic chives is I showed you the varieties with the purple flower and the white flowers. It's really nice to have both of them in your garden. The reason being is that the purple garlic chives come up first in the spring, and they die back earlier in the summer, whereas the white-flowered garlic chives come up in early summer, and they go through right into the fall. So it means you have a good, steady supply, and they both taste the same. They do well in sun. The biggest thing they need is a good, rich soil. And when you harvest chives, one thing that's really important, let's just pretend this is a chive plant growing out of the ground. The one thing to do is always go into the garden and cut the chives right down by the soil. If you go into the garden and cut the chives, the tops off, what happens, the tops just go brown and the plant doesn't regrow. Okay, let's just keep chopping a few more of these up here. And what I do is, as soon as the flowers come on and they start to go to seed, I cut my whole plant down to the ground regardless. I give it a heavy feeding of fish fertilizer, and in about 2 to 3 weeks, the chives are back up again, about 6 to 8 inches tall. Okay, the next step is to take some melted butter that I've had melting on the stove here, and bring it over and brush onto the puff pastry. And all this is going to do is help the chives stick to the pastry, and when we put the one sheet of pastry on top of the other, it will help the whole thing make a nice firm little sandwich, so to speak. Bring one piece of the puff pastry up like this, and first I'm going to put some just cheese on it. Don't get too much cheese on it. Okay, now the chives. Here we go. Doesn't that look pretty already? You almost want to eat it right there. Okay. This next piece of pastry, place it very carefully on top. Just pat it down gently, or you may want to take a rolling pin and just slightly roll it out. If children are doing this particular part, I recommend using a pizza cutter. I'm going to use my knife today. What you want to do now is cut these into about 1-inch strips. And this is the part that the kids are really going to enjoy. And just pat them down a little bit, make sure they're all together. And then you just take these and just nip at the ends and just start twisting. And twist, and twist, and twist until you get a really nice spiral. And then the one thing to remember, if you're making these with children, as adults we tend to be perfectionists, and kids are going to make all kinds of goofy shapes, but they're still going to taste real good. Okay, at this point, like I said, you can scrape up any extra cheese that happens to be lying on your board. And a bit more, sprinkle it on top. If you want to, you could brush a little bit more butter on at this point, and those are ready to go into the oven. Let's move back to our pizza now. The sauce is ready. And you know, if you ever notice that children don't like to eat the crust of pizzas, one thing I find that really encourages kids to get into eating the crust is if you bring the sauce right up and right out over the edge of the crust. If children are doing this and they're getting sauce all over the counter and they're getting it all over the clothes, just bear with it, because they're having fun, and cooking food is all about having fun. Let's just add a little bit of some of this cheese on top. And as I said earlier, your choice of cheese. I just like to sprinkle a little bit of Parmesan on the top, and that's it. They're both finished. So after this, they both can go into the same oven, 450 degrees for 10 to 12 minutes. Bring them out, let them cool down, and enjoy. These two recipes are very versatile. And if you don't have chives for the cheese twists, use green onions, or if your child doesn't care for chives, try parsley. Instead of Greek oregano in the pizza sauce, consider using fresh basil, fresh rosemary, or even some fresh thyme.